It's time to talk about the legendary ride Pokemon, Miraidon and Koraidon. This is something I've wanted to express my feelings on for a while, but never knew the best angle to come at it from. Subjectively, the idea of getting legendary Pokemon at the beginning of the game that will act as both your bike and effectively replace every HM doesn't sit right with me. But that's not a video. I try not to bring these videos to you with nothing in them other than my thoughts on the franchise or pure speculation. There should always be value here. You should be able to walk away having gained some sense of knowledge or insight into the varying topics we discuss. So, having analyzed my own biases as someone who has played these games since Red and Blue, here's a, hopefully succinct, explanation as to why I don't think motorbike legendaries aren't necessarily a good thing, and why, just maybe, HMs were better? Let's get into it. First off, what's an HM? Not as in what does an HM do, as in what's its purpose? Why were they ever implemented into the games? The simplest answer is that they acted as a roadblock for in-game progression. In Red and Blue, there is no way you can progress once you reach Vermilion City without cut. Cheats and glitches excluded. Unless you rub the back of a sickly sea captain, you cannot progress beyond this point. You can't even go home. There is no way back to Pallet Town, Viridian City, or Pewter City without cut. You are stuck with a dude who turned himself into a Pokemon, a city where the police don't investigate crime scenes properly, and a city where the ruling power is an imposing military figure from another nation. Okay, there's also a cave and an underground and some routes, but that's beside the point. The rest of Kanto is just locked off to you at this stage of the game, until you get a disc from an old man, slap it on your Pokemon's head, and permanently tarnish its moveset with a 50 base power normal type move with no secondary effect. Oh, and it misses 5% of the time. This move is garbage, but you need it to progress. What's worse is when we were small-brained infants, it was likely we taught this to our starter, which only further led to our hatred of HMs as they became the stain on our otherwise perfectly honed, over-leveled behemoth that we unwittingly put there ourselves. And I know there's the move deleter, but they used to be so late into the game that you would still be lumbered with this dog tier move on one of your best, if not probably your only good Pokemon for the vast majority of your playthrough. So, here's why they were good. Not having cut in this instance halts your progression in the game as far as exploration and story are concerned. This feels incredibly restrictive in a story-based RPG focused around exploration and discovery. It suddenly shutters you into this strip of map with nowhere else to go. However, it doesn't stop the actual gameplay loop that Pokemon is formed around. That is, encountering and battling Pokemon. You can still find different kinds of Pokemon in the wild across different areas. There are a few sites of interest to visit. You can pick up several key items that will improve your journey going forward, and fight 2 gym leaders as well as your rival twice, all whilst ensuring your Pokemon are fully healed, have access to swap them out, and make sure your items are fully stocked. You could quite easily spend your time here catching and grinding up Pokemon indefinitely without needing cut. I know this because I did it as a kid. All that being said though, the moment you get cut, not only are you allowed to progress, but the vast majority of Kanto opens up to you. Basically, apart from Cinnabar Island, all the cities can be visited via one route or another. Other roadblocks will stand in your way: evil teams, sleeping Pokemon, even guards who don't have access to fresh drinking water whilst in the workplace. Seriously, those guys need to unionize. But all of those are one-time events. Once you've found the specific item necessary or defeated the required encounter, that roadblock vanishes. Unlike HMs, which are an intrinsic part of how you explore and progress through the region. They don't act as a challenge to overcome, but a method for you and the Pokemon you have collected to interact with the environment to combat natural forming obstacles. Man and Pokemon coming together to battle the ever-present force of nature. You can't do it without them, they can't do it without you. It's beautiful, it's poetic, I freaking love these games, flaws and all. What's more, you only get the HM once you as a character prove you're not a total turd like your rival. By displaying compassion to a seasick man, you demonstrate your character's willingness to care for others, which the captain then believes is a strong enough signifier that you are capable of facing the trials and tribulations of the rest of the world with the bonds you have with your Pokemon, with whom you no doubt share an equal level of compassion. This line of thinking actually acts as the emotional through line for the rest of the game, culminating in the professor chastising his grandson, telling him that he lost the biggest match of his life because he didn't care for his Pokemon enough. Okay, so side note, I don't want to go off too much of a tangent here, but I have to address this. Blue actually doesn't do a great job representing the antithesis to you when it comes to this viewpoint in these games. As far as we can tell, he's not particularly abusive or uncaring to his Pokemon, but he's not great with people, so it's kind of supposed to be implied, I guess. Silver really did this same role better with some cool nods to his mindset, like Golbat and Kadabra not evolving because he's not friendly to his Pokemon and doesn't have any friends to trade with. But this video is about HMs, so... Not only does Cut allow you to move forward though, it also allows you to traverse back through towns already visited, even allowing for further exploration of those areas with new hidden secrets to find. By placing obstacles earlier in the game that you know the player will not be able to pass until far later, when they may not even have a reason to return here, makes the reward for those who do backtrack feel even more impactful. Once a player learns Cut and remembers back to the tree they couldn't pass outside the Pewter City Museum, they can head back there to find out what they were missing, feeling a sense of accomplishment knowing they can now overcome obstacles they previously couldn't. And I cannot stress this point enough, they use their Pokemon to help overcome those obstacles. It's not an item, it's not the I like shorts kids Pokemon, it's your Pokemon, using a move you taught it specifically for this purpose. Of course, as great as I think the experience they can offer you as a player is, and although I think that they help bring this world to life in an interesting way, that doesn't stop the fact that they are generally disliked across the wider fanbase. And I think the main reason for that is that you're stuck with them. HMs are permanent, and that's annoying to deal with, especially with weaker ones like Cut, Flash, or Rock Smash. The main reason for the mechanic being implemented in this way was to help stop players from soft-locking themselves in areas with no feasible method of escape. Didn't always work, but that was the idea. The issue I find is that in attempting to solve this problem that people had with HMs, Game Freak threw the baby out with the bathwater. It started simple in X and Y. You literally needed one HM to beat the game, and that's the HM you're probably teaching your Pokemon anyway. Surf. You still get access to other HMs, but they're not mandatory to progress. They're more useful for exploration and discovery. Arguably, even Fly. Sure, it's quicker and easier to dart around the map when you have access to Pokemon with Fly, but if you just follow the path laid out for you via the story, you never actually need it. It's really quite a smart solution. The problem I have with HMs in X and Y though, is how watered down the method of obtaining them has become. In these games, outside of Cut, every single HM is just handed to you by someone during a story moment. You literally can't miss them. They don't require you to search for them, there's no character progression, and there's no sense of accomplishment. I'm not saying that every HM has to be as hard to find as Rock Climb and Sinnoh, but look again at how much work went into finding the HMs in Red and Blue. Cut, you have to make an old man feel better. Fly, you have to cut through a bush to find the house of a girl who is purposely being hard to find. Surf, you find your way through a labyrinthian safari zone to a secret hut and figure out that you're the first one to do so for ages. In Strength, you help an elderly man who people abandoned just because he sounded like he was having a stroke. I'm not sure I'm okay with that joke, but I'm leaving it in anyway. Then, once Ride Pokemon got introduced, this problem only got worse. Now, not only does someone just give you the ability to traverse this previously untraversable overworld the exact moment you need it to progress the story, but it's not even your Pokemon. Pokemon got reduced to nothing but an online taxi service. You just go into your Poke Uber app and summon a Tauros through the internet. And this is where they started to get stupid too. Mudsdale and Sharpedo feel entirely superfluous. It's slow Tauros that can go over arbitrarily different ground and upgraded Lapras. I wouldn't mind so much if, for instance, Mudsdale added the ability to climb up walls and change your elevation, or you could dive underwater with Sharpedo. That would allow you to open spaces up that you truly couldn't have explored before. But now you can walk on bumpy ground. Woo! And again, they're not your Pokemon. This is not you and your Pokemon overcoming the trials of your journey together. In fact, by Sword and Shield, Fly is literally a taxi service. And everything else is replaced entirely by your bike, which is also just handed to you. Sure, you need to beat up some grunts to save some dude, but you didn't go there to help him. They just so happened to be standing in the only path you had forward. I'm getting a little riled up. So I'm not even going to mention BDSP because that somehow changed a functioning HM system into a taxi service that just handed it to you as well. But what I will say is that although Legends Arceus also suffers from many of these same issues, with the world being so much more open, the ability to ride different Pokemon feels more impactful. Also, although they are not your Pokemon, they are Pokemon that are intrinsic to the story your character is on. It's kind of cool. It's far from perfect, but I don't detest it quite as much. So the question then comes to Scarlet and Violet, which no doubt will have many of the benefits that I feel propped up ride Pokemon for me in Legends. They are the legendaries, so you know they're going to have something to do with the story, and it's even more open world than Legends, so they should feel even more necessary for traversal. So what's my problem? The problem I have is, they're still not yours. We've seen in the description of Picnics that the box art Pokemon aren't going to be part of your party, and are effectively little more than the Rotom bike with more features. A bike with some plot surrounding it, which is great, but they really didn't even try to hide the comparison. Look at that neck! So with all that being said, what would my solution be? What would my ideal replacement for HMs be? I kind of feel like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee came the closest to perfection for me with secret techniques. I don't think the way you get them is as good as the original Kanto games, but these are aimed at a younger audience, so that's understandable. That being said, say in Scarlet and Violet, you had to go through a dungeon, or a cave, or climb one of the towers, and once there, you gained access to use a secret technique which you could share with all of your Pokemon that allowed you to surf, or cut, rock climb, fly, and it didn't take up a move slot. It was just an ability that you would work together to learn how to use. I think that would be pretty much perfect. Unlike the Let's Go games though, I wouldn't have all the techniques on your partner or starter Pokemon, but instead, if you wanted to fly, after finding the fly technique, you'd need to catch a Pokemon capable of fly. You want to surf? Find the technique, catch a Pokemon that can surf, and share the technique with it. It solves every issue I have with HMs. You need to find and earn them, they don't take up a move slot, and they allow you and your Pokemon to traverse the overworld together. It also works so well for an open world game. Areas aren't locked off to you until some arbitrary point in story progression. You can go get the techniques as soon or as late as you like, at which point the world immediately becomes much larger for you, and it incentivizes going and catching more Pokemon, which is only a good thing. And that's my thoughts on HMs and ride Pokemon. Do you agree with me or not? Let me know in the comments below, because that's going to do it for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you join me again on the next one. But until then, I'll catch you later. Continuing to make these videos would not be possible without the help from our channel members, and especially our Mega Tier members. Thank you.